Hey everyone, how's it going? And
Hi,
welcome back
everybody.
to part 4 of this Hands-On with Maxon Intro to Rigging workshop. My name's Ellie, I'm a trainer at Maxon, and once again I'm joined by New York animator Joe Herman. How's it going, Joe?
Pretty well, pretty well. Nice to be with you again. Thanks for everybody for coming.
Yeah, good to
Hopefully
be with
we've
you
got a nice
too.
international crowd again, and let's go.
I imagine we do. We've already got a couple of people in the chat saying hey. So we've got Bernd, Jay, Bruno, Enno, Wesley. So yeah, let us know where you're from. Give us a little hey. It's the same place where you ask us questions throughout this whole show.
Right, right.
So let me just kick off this little slideshow.
I
So
definitely hear some names there that are kind of regulars there.
we do, yeah. I think we've got quite a few regular people on these sessions, and especially this workshop, which I think is really nice.
Right.
It's because of all the
Thank
great
you.
stuff you're doing, Joe. That's why they're
Thanks.
coming back for more.
Thanks.
So really quickly, here's a little breakdown of how we've sort of separated this workshop over 6 different parts. And I can't believe we're already on part 4, where we're diving into some things like the character object. And we'll hear from Joe in a sec about what we're actually going to be doing in today's session. But if you wanted to catch up on any of these sessions, they are on the Maxon Train Team YouTube channel. So you can already find parts 1, 2, and 3 on there. And then here are the dates for parts 5 and 6 as well, which are coming up very quickly. I just can't believe how like fast this workshop's going.
Yeah, yeah. I see everybody here. Let me just say that, Bernd, and I know you've already shouted out, but Prospect Heights, Brooklyn, and Spokane, Washington, and yeah, just saying hello.
Yeah,
Okay, go on.
all
On.
over,
Yeah,
all over the globe, aren't we?
yeah.
So really quickly, some extra bits. I've already sort of mentioned that on the Maxon Train Team YouTube channel is where you can find all of these sessions, as well as all the other sessions that the team are doing. And we also have some project files. So I'll show you where to find those links in just a sec. And all the information that for this whole workshop, including all the previous project files and project files for today, can be found in the handout section of GoToWebinar. So hopefully you guys can see there's a GoToWebinar interface, and there should be a little drop down for the handout section. If not, let me know in the questions and we can link you to those. And as always, don't forget to follow Joe on Twitter and Instagram, because he and I have been keeping up with the stuff that you guys have been creating throughout this workshop and throughout all of the other workshops that we do at Maxon. So Joe, part 4, we're diving into character rigging and the character object. Did you want to sort of have a little breakdown of what we're going to be doing over the next couple of hours with everyone?
I do. And thank you, Adonis. That's a very kind of you to say so. But in any case, the thing is that so today, actually, so last week we took a look at some different techniques. We talked about constraints a little bit. We talked about the C motion system in Cinema 4D, which is a very powerful animation system in there that really is kind of unique to Cinema 4D, and there's so much you can do with it. It's so powerful. And we used it to create sort of a flapping bird. I also wanted to get a little bit into talking about the big concepts between rigging IK legs and feet, since that's a really important rigging skill to have, and it's a very important subject of rigging, is rigging IK legs and feet. We didn't get to it last week. I was thinking, I was wondering, should I just let it go and, move straight into the character object this week? But I decided that it's kind of important, so we're going to start out with that today. And it's sort of like a step towards the full character rig we're going to be building with the character object. So it's sort of like, we've talked a lot of basic functions about what are joints and, what is FK, what is IK, and all that stuff. And then this rigging of IK legs and feet, that'll be the final step of like some of the manual rigging stuff we've been doing until we get to the one of the holy grails of rigging in Cinema 4D, which is the character object. And so that's what we're going to get. So we're going to start looking at today after we talk about that first stuff. And we're going to start building a rig, a full character rig with a full character. Okay, we're gonna figure out what it is, how to do it. We're gonna bind the rig, we're gonna adjust the rig. And there are some of the files we're going to be using for the exercises. And that's what we're going to be doing today.
Cool. Cool. That all sounds really great. So before we get into it, let me just really quickly show you guys on the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. If you scroll down, we actually have a hands-on with Maxon playlist. And here, if you ever want to catch up with the previous sessions, so if you missed one, or if you had to leave partway through, or just want to generally go back and recap the great information that Joe's been showing us, then all you have to do is head over to YouTube and you can see we've got parts 1, 2, and 3, all of which are timestamped thanks to Dr. Sassy. So shout out Dr. Sassy.
Oh yeah, I wanted to thank Dr. Sassy for doing that. That's a great thing you're doing. Thank you, Doc.
Yeah, always appreciate him doing that for all of these sessions. It really is a great time saver and really invaluable for everyone going back and watching these sessions as well. And so just to quickly see on the handout section, this is the handout section here, all of those links that we just talked about, you can find on there, as well as a link to the project files, which Joe has kindly, separated into individual weeks. And today we have these 2 projects here, which we'll be diving into. So shall I hand it over to you, Joe, and we'll get into it?
Thank you. Yeah, let's get started.
Cool,
and we'll have fun at the dentist, Jim. And thanks, Skylar, for saying that. Okay, so what we'll do is hey, Kent, good to see you. Personal friend of mine there. So let's go ahead and show my screen. Okay, can you see it? Okay.
Yep.
Okay, good. And so without further ado, actually what I did want to show you actually is I wanted to show you actually this somebody that's been in the class. I don't know if he's here today. If you are, please say hello. They took the lamp that we created in the first class, and they created sort of a little animation. There you go. Oh, that's Skylar, right? There you go. So thanks for coming. And he created a fun little animation. I wanted to show it. It's actually on YouTube. It's under Maxon lamp animation lesson example. But so let's see what it is. As you can see, he has a little ball come out, sort of stops the ball and kicks it with dynamics. Looks on the other side. The ball comes back, maybe his feelings are hurt or something, and then causes the lamp to fall. And it turns out that it's actually an evil little ball because he knocks him off the table. So thanks for making that, but you can see how he's using the tilt on the base and all that other stuff. So that's really fun. Thank you for making that and showing everybody, and maybe we'll all get a little inspiration to do something ourselves.
It is amazing. I have a story behind it. It's quite funny.
Yeah,
as well. I really like it.
Yeah. How was the frame rate on that? Okay.
Yeah, I think it seems okay.
Okay, good.
Seems good.
All right. Now, so thanks for doing that. Now let's actually go ahead and we're going to let me turn off my camera. Let's see. You can find that thing under Maxon lamp animation lesson example. Okay, how do I turn off my camera? Sharing, okay. Okay. So let's get started. So basically, as I said before, I wanted to get, last week we made this flying bird, right? And we sort of we animated the head to make him sort of looking down. And we did this with this C motion system. And the thing is that what we want to do now, though, is we want to talk about creating, oops, that's not it. we're creating kind of like a bit of a IK. We want to examine how to use IK to set up legs. So you might not be doing a full character. Maybe you're doing something like a little sort of abstract animation of like where you just want shapes to walk out. This could be the square, you could have a cone, you could have a sphere, and you just want them to have legs. So not, you know, you're not always doing full characters. You might be doing something like this. This is actually has no subdivision surfaces on it. I could put a subdivision surface on it, but then it would look something like this, and everything would get smoothed out, which is pretty cool if you want that kind of a look. But you know, for this, I won't do that. I'm just going to have it sort of look like a faceted. Maybe that's the look I'm looking for. I want it to be a faceted thing. You don't always have to use subdivision surfaces, especially if you want something to look all choppy, or not choppy, but faceted or something like that. That might be a stylistic way that you want to work. But so the thing is that how would we want to rig this so that way we can put, you know, we can use IK. Right now we've used IK for the lamp, where we were able to take the front of the lamp, and we were able to create animation for that, for the front of the lamp, without having to animate all the bones. It was an IK chain. But here, what we're going to do is we are going to use it for the feet. So how would we do that? So first of all, what I'm going to do is I'm going to switch to a side view. Hopefully everybody can see that. It's a little bit dark, okay? And I have my character menu over here, okay? Actually, I want to do something. I want to make sure I revert this project in case I did something before that messed it up. Okay, so the thing is that I'm going to go to the character menu, and I'm going to choose the, I'm going to rip this off, choose the joint tool, and I'm going to control click right here for the start of what I'm going to call the thigh. And I'm going to go right into the middle. I might just go a little bit forward, which is a common technique to do to sort of like help the a joint chain bend in a certain direction, because I want it to bend forward at the knee and not backward at the knee. Although if I was doing maybe a bird, you'd want to have it backward at the knee. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to control click right at the ankle. Okay, right there, and then I'm going to control click maybe right here at the ball of the foot. Okay, and then I'm going to control click and create sort of like the toes. Okay, so there we've got that. And what I'm going to do is, so we've got like a little joint chain here. And okay, so we've got a little joint chain there, and it's sort of like in the middle of the character. So I don't want it in the middle of the character. So I'll go to a front view. Okay, and we'll take oh, I made it with a root null. I didn't really necessarily want that. So I'll just drag this chain out of the root null, and I'll click the root null and delete it. Or remember, you could have selected the joint tool and just unchecked root null. And so I'm going to take the first joint in the chain, and I'm going to take that, take my move tool and move it to the center of the left leg. Okay, and there you have it. Now, the next thing that I want to do is, so right now the thing is that this is forward kinematic. So if I were ever to want to animate this, you know, I'd have to select the thigh and, you know, rotate the thigh, let's say, and then go to like the shin and rotate the shin, and then I'd have to go to the foot and rotate the foot, and you know, it's a lot of work to do all that kind of animation in a forward kinematic setup. So that's why what I want to do is I want to set up an IK chain here. But before I do, I want to create a controller, kind of like in the lamp. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to just create a rectangle spline. I mean, yeah, rectangle spline, which looks like a square, but actually it's called a rectangle. And I'm going to flatten it on the ground, right? And I want to drag, right now its pivot is right here in the center of the world. I want to drag its pivot right here to the center of this joint, which is the foot joint. So I could, drag it into the foot joint, actually, right, let me name these joints. So the first joint here, I'm going to call it the thigh joint, right? The second joint, I'm going to call it the shin joint. Oops. The third joint, I'm going to call it the foot joint. This joint, I'll call it the toe joint. And then this joint, I will call it the toe tip, let's say, okay? So, I could just take this rectangle, which I will call the left _ foot control, okay? And I could drag it into the foot and then, zero out its position and all of that, okay? But instead of doing that, like the thing is that maybe if I put on snapping, I can take this thing and I can snap it to that joint with the snapping tool, okay? So if I try to do that, you can see I'm snapping to points here. As you can see, as I get near the points, it snaps to the points, which is very useful. But if I go towards the axis, it doesn't snap to it, okay? What if I want to snap it to the axis, okay? And the way you can snap things to axes, okay, is actually, hold on a second, let me just see something here. Okay, whatever. No, it's funny on the chat. It's like it scrolls up and it becomes nothing. But anyway, let me not get confused right here. So the thing is that to get something to snap to the axis, like instead of just the points, what you could do is in the attributes manager here under mode, okay, you go to the modeling thing in the modeling menu, okay, and it says under snap, you could just click here under axis, okay? And if you do that, if you now move this thing over, it snaps on the points because the points are selected, okay? But will also snap on the axis. So that's a useful tool when you're doing rigging to have things be able to snap to axis or edges or polygons or so on and so forth. Okay, if I click on edge, and if I were to move this, you see it snaps along the edge of this. Okay, so these are all useful. I'll just leave axis on for right now. And now if I switch to like a side view, oops, where is the side view? This should be a side view. So let's make that a left view. So you can see that, or better yet, a right view. So you can see that this rectangle is now snapped and its pivot is right here on the joint. Now what I want to do is I want to move the rectangle down, okay, but keep the axis on that joint, okay? So the way that you can do that is you could, like, for example, go ahead and if I were just to click on this rectangle, even if I go to points mode, it moves the whole thing down. It just moves everything down. That's because it's a parametric spline. So what I would need to do is I would need to make it an editable object by right-clicking on it, making editable object or pressing the C key. Okay, and now that converts it to points. Okay, so now what I can do is if I go to the side view and if I select the points in this, which is going to be a controller, I can move them down to the ground like this. Okay, and I want to take snap off actually, and there we go, we're on the ground. Okay, and now what I can do is that, notice if I go back to the object view and I go to the right view, if I click on this foot control, its pivot is at the joint, but its points are on the ground because we want it to rotate from that joint. So now I'm going to go to the points mode. Okay, and we'll take the scale tool and we'll scale this in a little bit to like right around here. Okay, and we'll take these 2 points. Hang on. And we'll move those sort of back to here. And we'll take these 2 points and we'll move these to about right here. And now we've got the controller L foot control, right? So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click on the, it's funny that like it shrunk down the, try to figure this out. I was able to expand this before. Oh, so it's from right here. Okay, gotcha. So let's see now. So what we can do here is we can go ahead and we can right click on the thigh. We can make it we can give it an IK tag. And we're going to tell it for the end of the chain, we're going to start from the thigh, which is right here. And the end of the IK chain, we want to make it right here. So we're going to take the foot, we're going to go ahead to the IK tag. And we're going to say to the foot, we're going to say the end of it's at the foot. Okay. And then for the goal, we're going to drag in that controller we just made. Okay. So now to actually move the foot around, you can now click on the control and now you can sort of move the foot, makes it a lot easier to actually animate the leg. Now, the only problem is that when I move the foot, you notice that the foot, when I move this controller, you notice that the foot kind of maintains its angle with the shin, okay? So similarly, in the way for the lamp is I want to constrain this foot to the controller. So that way, so the way to do that is that on the foot joint, I'm going to add a constraint. Okay, rigging tags constraint. And I'm going to drag in, so I'm going to tell them, I'm going to make it a transform constraint. Let's go to transform tab now. And what I'm going to do is I am going to drag in I don't need to constrain its position because it's always going to be at the end of this joint. So I don't have to actually, or it's always going to be right here. So I don't have to, I can uncheck that. But for the rotation, I'm going to bring in the L foot control, to drag that in, look what happens. It messes up its orientation, puts it in the back like that. And that is obviously not what we want. Okay, so the way to fix that is that before I do that, I'm going to, in the constraint, I'm going under the offset area, okay? I'm going to click maintain original. And now I'm going to drag in the foot control. And now it doesn't move anymore. And now if I take the foot control, right? And now if I rotate the foot, you see that the foot control, you see that that bone, that foot bone is rotating with it. Okay, so now I can go ahead and take the foot control, move it up and rotate it and be able to control that foot. Okay, so having said all that, you know, that's all good. We're getting the IK working pretty much. There's one other thing I want to do, and I want to click on this, right, on the IK tag of the thigh, and I want to add a pole vector. So I'm going to click add pole under pole vector, and then that's going to add this thigh pole, okay, which is a null. I'm going to drag it forward and I'm going to drag it up a little bit, okay? And I'm also going to make it not look like a dot. I'm going to click on this null and I'm going to make it look like a triangle, okay? And now I've added a pole vector, and we're going to see how this can be handy later when we actually weight this thing. So now we're going to take the thigh joint, okay, and we're going to take the mirror tool, which is right here, okay, and we're going to say we're going to mirror it positive to negative, okay, and what we're going to do is we are going to, because it's on the positive side of the x-axis, we're going to mirror it, and then notice it also is smart enough to take along the foot goal, okay? Foot control. So, except it just named it the same thing, and we don't want to have it do that, so we're going to call it R foot control, okay? So now we've got both of these legs set up, and now what we're going to do is we're going to select all the joints in this chain. We're going to go to the naming tool, okay, and we're going to give it an L underscore prefix, and you're going to see that we need to do that for the weighting to be symmetrical. And on the right side, we're going to give this, we're going to go to the naming tool again, okay, and we're going to give this an R underscore prefix. A lot of these things, by the way, that I talk about, we have talked about before in previous lessons. If this is your first lesson, I would suggest that you watch the other 3 lessons because many of these topics were gone into deeper depth. So now that that's done, what we want to do is we also want to go to the front view, okay? And we want to create like a pelvis joint. So what we're going to do is we're going to have nothing selected, go to the joint tool, uncheck root null, okay? And then we're going to click like right here and then maybe go down to here, okay? And that's going to be my pelvis joint, okay? So, so we have that set up like that. So, and I'm going to name this pelvis. I'm going to name this joint pelvis. And I'm going to name this joint pelvis tip. And what we're going to do, what I'm going to do is I'm going to drag both of these joint chains into the pelvis joint. And so they're connected. And now what happens is that, if I were to take the pelvis, right, and I were to drag this down, see if none of these joints were enabled, okay, so I'm going to disable all of these tags, the IK tags and the constraint tags. And if I were to just drag the pelvis down, you notice that the foot would go through the floor. But what if I wanted him to bend down and pick something up? Okay, it would be a lot of work. I'd have to bring this up, then I'd have to bring up the thigh, and then I have to bring up the shin, okay, and then I have to bring up the foot, all to get him to bend his knee. Okay, and it's never going to be perfect because you're always going to have to do trial and error to get it exactly on the ground. Okay, so the thing is that I'm going to re-enable all of these tags here, and well, actually, let me undo. So I'm going to re-enable all of these tags, and now if I just drag the pelvis down. See, the feet are bending, and I mean the knees are bending, and the feet are locked onto the floor. Okay, so and also if I take the foot and move it up, then the knee bends and the knee bends and the pelvis doesn't go up. So you can see how powerful and how important it is to set up the feet like this. And this is typically how the basics of how the feet are usually set up, with some differences in order to get, for example, the character to step up on its tippy toes and things like that, which are more of an advanced type of setup. But the basics is always set up like this for the feet. So that's one of the reasons why we're learning it. Now, so let's go ahead and click on the cube, and we want to weight it to, actually, before I do that, I do want to create sort of like a circle and make it flat on the floor. And then I want to make it sort of like that. And this is going to, and I'm just going to call this the name of the character, which is Square Guy. He's a square. And I want to take all of this stuff, okay, and I want to make it a child of this, like that. Okay, so now, in order to weight this, we have to bind this geometry to the bones. And like I said in previous classes, I can do that automatically with auto weights by just selecting this and then selecting all of the joints and then selecting this and then choosing the bind tool. That will weight it automatically. But like I said, auto weights usually have problems. It's a nice little thing, but I want to weight this by hand by clicking on this cube, right-clicking it, going to the rigging tags, giving it a weight tool. There it is. Okay, making a skin object, making it a child of the geometry, clicking on the weight tool, and in its attributes, dragging in all of the weights, all of the joints that I want to bind the mesh to, okay, which is there, okay? And now we're ready to weight. So so now in order to go ahead and weight this thing, we're gonna go to like a front view. All right, and let's go ahead and bring up our weight manager, which is very important. You always want to have the weight manager up when you are weighting joints, and these two tabs are selected. Okay, 1, 2. So we get these commands and we can see the joints that we want to weight to. Okay, let's just go into our point mode and let's select all of these points. Okay, I don't have visible only selected, so it's selecting it on the back side too. Okay, and we'll also select these points and these points and these points, and there's a few that we missed here. Okay, you notice it's all black because there are no weights on this because I weighted it manual. And we'll select these points and these points, okay, and then these points, these points, these points, and these points. Okay, and we want to weight all of these 100% to the pelvis, and then boom, there we go. They're all weighted to the pelvis now. Okay, next what I want to do is I want to switch to the weight tool because I want to have some symmetrical rigging because the next part of the model is symmetrical. Okay, and remember, I want to go into the symmetry tab, click enable symmetry, okay, and click the name option and tell it for all joints that start with an L underscore, okay, I want to paint their weights to be for mirrored points on the other side to be painted exactly the same on any joints that start with R underscore and vice versa. Okay, so now what I'm going to do is I'm going to click the pelvis and the thigh, both of those joints, pelvis and thigh, and I want to weight these points on this edge to those two joints. And since I have two joints selected, it's going to weight 50% to each. Okay, so you can see that we've got 50% to each. And on the other side, it's happening symmetrically, and it's not happening symmetrically. Now that's odd. Oh, because it is happening symmetrically because it's these outside joints that I'm doing. Okay, so sorry. So you can see, but this time it's pelvis and right thigh. And here it's pelvis and left thigh. So the symmetry is working fine. We're going through it and we're weighting all of those joints. Okay, and then they're weighted symmetrically on the other side. And now what we can do is we can go ahead now and just the thigh bone is selected, the thigh joint is selected, and we're going to weight these at 100% to those joints. Now, be careful when you're weighting that, like for example, right now in the options, it's saying visible only. If this is not selected and you're weighting, like let's say we're going to go ahead and we're going to weight, these points, okay, or we'll weight, we'll weight exactly like these points, okay. So what's happening is that a lot of times, and these points, is what happens is that with that not selected, you notice that some points on the back get selected because it's going through the model, okay, and it's weighting in the back. Sometimes you want it unchecked visible only, okay, if depending, like for example, I can leave it unchecked here, and then I can just do these joints here, and I know that the ones on the other side are going to get weighted because it's going through the model, and here too. But it can also cause problems. So I'm going to put it back to visible only. So all of these points got weighted 100% to the thigh. Now we're going to go to the thigh and shin. Okay, select both of those joints, select these, around here, so they get weighted 50% to each joint. Okay, and there you have it. It's happening symmetrically. We'll go to the shin, and we're going to weight those joints to the shin. those points. And oops, it looks like I have a little point here that's not supposed to be there. So I'm just going to switch to this tool, select that point, and actually it's on the other side too. And I'm going to hit the delete key. Okay, so if you have a point, you can go ahead and edit that. Now, for the next weighting that I'm going to do is I'm going to take the weight tool, and then on the shin and foot, so both of these joints to get, distribute the weights, I'm going to click this point, this point, this point, this point, and this point. So all those get weighted 50% between these two bones, okay? And then having said that, these though, I want to weight to the foot 100%. So I'm going to click on the foot, okay? And I'm going to weight these 100% to the foot. Okay, and it's happening symmetrically. Okay, so there you go. It's 100% to the foot. The ones on the bottom, I want to weight 100% to the foot. Okay, because they're going to move with the foot when the foot rotates. Okay, those all get weighted 100% to the foot. Then I'm going to click the foot and the toe, and I'm going to weight these points to the foot and to the toe. And they get to be at 50% to those two. And then I'm just going to click the toe and weight those to the toe. Okay. So now if we were to go ahead and click on the weight tag, we can see that the entire character is weighted. Okay. Now, having the entire character weighted, that's great. Now I can close the weight manager because I'm not going to weight anymore. Go back to the model mode. And then you can see that I can pick up the pelvis, like for example, and I can have him, bend his legs or lift a leg, put a leg forward, and it's all weighted to the character, rotate a leg, okay, rotate a foot, and do all of that stuff. So now, one other thing that we can do is that, like, for example, if I were to take, one thing that you can do that's good if you want to, you could, for example, take the pelvis and you can go ahead and you can freeze its transformations. So we can always say that that's sort of, 0 on the pelvis. So now the thing is that one thing you can do, let's say I brought the pelvis a little bit down and I would take the foot, right? And I rotate the foot, let's say you want to give him a pose, you want to drag this foot maybe forward a little bit, this one over here forward a little bit, and this one you wanted to go ahead and, you could even, for example, take the pelvis and sort of put more weight on that foot. And then this foot, you want to give it, there's a name for this, I think, in classical art, this pose where more weight's on one foot and the other foot's pointing out this way. I think Michelangelo's David is like that. I forgot what the name, it's not chiaroscuro, it's like contrapunti, I think is what the name of it, but that's neither here or there. But there's a problem though. You see, like if I rotate the foot, the leg doesn't look natural. It's unnatural. And that is because what you want to do is you want to take the pole vector, and that's what the pole vector is for. It actually points the knee in the right way. Okay. So now the knee is pointed, and the pole vector is being used for what it's supposed to be used for. Okay. So anyway, let's just bring this stuff back up. So let me take a look at the chat, or actually, you've been looking at the chat, Ellie. So why don't you let me know if there has been any questions?
Yeah, so Mohammed was wondering, how are you deciding to distribute your weights? Is it experience, or is there kind of an actual formula behind it?
It's both. Well, number one, there's a logic to it. There's a science to it, and also there's an art to it. There is a science to it. So a science and an art to it. But the way that I'm doing is that I don't know if Mohammed was here for the last class. I mean, for the class on point weighting. Okay. But the thing is that you know, I would refer him to look at the class on point weighting, because like these points, you know, all of these points here should be weighted 100% to the thigh, because they're going to move with the thigh, right? But these points here are weighted 50% to the thigh and 50% of the shin, because they want to be blended a little bit because they're on the joint. So you want them to be like that. Now on the foot, you know, I weighted these 50% to the shin and 50% to the foot, because you can see that if I were to take the foot, I mean the foot control, and if I were to rotate it, see, like these get blended, but these points are kind of like on the foot. Okay, so that's why I weighted these at 50% and these on the foot. And once again, I blended the weights of these here, you know, on the toe, okay, because what happens is that they get blended between the two, okay, but they don't, they're not, but the ones on the front don't get blended, so they're weighted at 100% to the toe, okay. So that's the thing. By the way, on the pelvis, if you notice, if I'm dragging down the pelvis, like if you look at the legs, like you see that little pop in the shading, it's like pops, right? So that in most cases you want a Phong tag, because a Phong tag smooths out the polygons on an object. But I'm going for a faceted look here. Okay, that's the look I want to go for. Okay, otherwise I'd use subdivision surfaces and the Phong tag. So I'm just going to delete the Phong tag. Okay, and then what happens is that you don't have that strange popping in the thing. So, and the cool thing is that, so, and also with the pelvis, you could see that, like, for example, you know, like, you know, if I drag the pelvis down a little bit, you know, I can have him sort of like go back and forth like that. Or for example, I can have him rotate side to side if he's like, you know, you're having him do a dance or something on the dance floor. You know, that's also something that you can do. You can have a boogieing thing. So there we have it. Is there anything else?
Yeah, there's a couple of other ones, if you don't mind. So Jay was wondering, can you save both the rig and weights in the assets, so like the asset browser, and say have it as like a standard character setup?
Yes, you can. Yes, and there'd be good reason for doing so.
Cool. Glenn was wondering, is there a way to have an initial pose that you can always go back to and just click a button?
So yes, there is, and there's a very, very powerful thing. I'm actually saving this for the last class in Cinema 4D. It's called the pose library. So the thing is that we're not quite there yet, but yes, there is.
Cool. Yeah. So a little teaser there.
Yeah.
And Aaron was wondering, under what circumstances would you weight joints at other than 50%?
We're going to get to that. There's a lot of circumstances where you want different, more than either you want it to be 75 and 25 or 66 and 33. Remember, the points have to be normalized. So if you weight one joint 33.3, the other one has to be 66.6.
Yeah.
Okay. But there's other reasons why you want to have one point be controlled by like 3 or 4 joints, each at 25%, or some mixture in there. And that has to do with the art of the equation. So it's a mixture of a science and art.
Cool. So one final one from Thomas. What if the axis of the joints point differently than yours? Do you have to align them?
Sometimes you have to align, sometimes you don't. have to align. Actually, if it's in the IK, you don't really have to align because it's being controlled by this controller. But sometimes you need to align, like you need to align for other things, like on the bird flapping, lining on the wings would have been more important. And I showed that last time. You can use this align function here in that. So sometimes it's important to align, sometimes it's not.
Cool. Yeah, that's that was all of them for now. Cheers, Joe.
Okay, great. All right. Thank you, Hannah. That's a nice comment from you. Let me just take a quick look, and I think we're going to go. And also, I'm looking at some others here. Anyway, let's keep going. Thank you for all the nice comments, and I'll read them later if in case you wanted to say something or whatever. So actually, so what I wanted to do because actually we want to get to the character object. Wow, okay. So we're going to actually, I did want to show you how you can do a little walk cycle in C-Motion with this. So we're going to make a C-Motion object. Remember last time we used it for this bird, okay? And but now we actually want to use it for something where C-Motion is used for something very useful, and that's walk cycles. A lot of people use it for walk cycles, and it's a very important tool for walk cycles. So what we're going to do is we're going to bring up a C-Motion object over here in the character tab, and it comes in off, so we want to turn it on. We're going to click the C-Motion object under the object, okay? Now remember last time we talked about hubs and targets. Hub is sort of like the daddy thing, and everything else is so whatever you do to the daddy is going to happen to all the children. So we're going to, we'll just use this because this is kind of like the daddy of everything. So we're just going to take that, we're going to drag that in to the C-Motion. It comes in as a hub, okay? And then what we're going to do is the first thing that I want to do is I want to drag in the, there's one other thing I want to do, okay? And that is later on, if let's say, for example, I have, I take the pelvis and the left and right foot controls and I move this forward, okay? I want you to notice something. These IK poles are not moving with it, okay? So if I were to go ahead and if I were to move this forward, if it passes it, then oops, look what happens. The whole thing gets messed up, right? So a good thing to do is to take these thigh poles and make them a child of the pelvis. Okay, now if you take the pelvis and you move this, and pick the pelvis and the foot controls. Because if you don't take the foot controls and you move the pelvis, they're not gonna, the foot will stay on the ground. So, but now we'll move, or anyway, whatever. So I can take the pelvis and the foot controls and I move those and now everything moves together. So that's a good thing to do to make this sort of children of the pelvis, okay? So let's go back to the C-Motion. We drag in this as the hub, okay? And we're gonna drag the L foot control, which is this thing here. We're gonna drag it into the C-Motion. It's a control now, it's not a bone, okay? So you don't have to just use bones, you can use controls. So if I drag it down here, and it gets on the same level as the square guy, thing, and that makes it another hub. You don't want to do that, okay? Because you want to make this left foot control a target of that, okay? Now, last time, if you recall, in the bird thing, I don't know how many here were in the bird lesson, but when something came in right away into the C-Motion, it came in as a step. So it would come in as a step and then we would immediately take it off of step. But in this case, it is a step. So we don't want to take it off of step, okay? So we want to leave it as a step. And as soon as we do that, you notice that as soon as I move this in, actually it's sort of moving back and forth, okay? Because it's a step. So that's good. By the way, I want to take the pelvis and move it back up a little bit. I want to move it to about right here, okay? So now the thing is, I'm going to go back to the C motion, and now I'm going to take the right foot control, also bring that as a target. And that is actually a step. So you already have a step here. Okay, and then the left foot control is its phase is at 25%, and the right foot control, its phase is at negative 25%. So there's a 50% stretch. So that means that the phase is exactly out of phase 50%. Okay, so if they were phased at 100%, then they would be doing the same thing. For example, if I made both of the phases here, okay, like if I made them both, let's say, let's say I made them both 25, right? Now they move together, okay? So by having them out of phase like that, you get the step motion, okay? So the phase is very important here, okay? So now what we can do, we can already tell it to move in a line. It's already gonna walk, but that doesn't look very natural. That looks like he's sliding on the floor. Maybe that's something you would wanna do if your character wanted to shuffle along, but we don't want it to shuffle along. So let me go back to a static mode, okay? And now what we want to do is on the left foot control, what we want to do is we want to give it a lift, okay? So we're going to give it a lift. We're going to add it, and as soon as the lift comes into that bone, that controller, okay, we click on the lift, and it comes in with already some data in there. 10 centimeters it comes in, and it comes in with this curve. And what that curve is saying is that it's lifting. It starts here, right, at here. That's where its phase starts. And it's going over here about 7 or 8 frames later, and it's reaching its peak of its lift. And then it's coming down to back down to the ground, because this is 0. And this is positive 10, and this is negative 10, because we have the lift to be a total of 10. So when it comes back to here, then it goes flat, and it stays flat until its lift starts over again. So flat, 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 lift, flat, 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 lift, okay? So the thing is that there's 2 things I want to do. First of all, I want it to go higher than, 10. So let's just say we'll make this lift to go about 25, okay? So now we've got a higher lift. It's up to you. This is up to you and basically what you're trying to do with your walk cycles, okay? So now what we're going to do is we're going to go to the right foot control. Instead of doing that all over again, we're going to give it a reference, okay? And we're going to give it a reference to the other action. So both of these things are going to be the same action, but they're just going to happen out of phase, okay? And if you want to edit the action, you go to the original action. Let's say I just wanted to go 22 high, okay? Then the other one is all automatically referring this. So you only have to edit one. So these references are really useful when you're designing motion with the C motion system, okay? Now the other thing that I want to do is that's already not bad. That already looks a lot better than when he was like shuffling, down the floor. It's already kind of like looking better like a walk cycle. But the other thing that I want to do is, let me give myself a few more frames here, is that I want to have it so that way when it goes up to its highest motion, which is going to be somewhere around here, okay, what I want to do is I want to add another action to this joint, okay? And not to this joint, to this control, foot control, this one, the left foot control, okay? And if you look at the rotation of this control, okay, is actually, if you look at the rotation of this left foot control, you can see that its x-axis is sticking out this way. So I want to rotate it around that x-axis, okay? So what I'm going to do is go back to the C motion thing, right? And I'm going to choose a roll, a pitch. So you might say pitch, twist, roll. Huh, what is that? I don't know what that is. I don't know what a pitch is. I don't know what a twist is. And you can see by right here, you can actually see it says RX. So it's going to rotate around the X axis. So that's how you know what these things are. So we're going to choose a pitch. We're going to click add, and that adds a little pitch thing. And this comes in with no data, because like some of these come in with data, some of them come in with no data. Okay. So what we're going to do is we're going to say, okay, well, let's give it some data. We'll give it like, we'll say 5 degrees. Okay, or let's say 10 degrees. Okay. So we'll say 10 degrees, but you notice that if I were to scroll the thing, nothing's happening because this graph is just staying flat. Okay. So let's actually figure out when we want this thing to rotate. So what we're going to do is we're going to right click on this little graph. We're going to say show in separate window, and then we can bring this up here. It's a little easier to work with. Okay, it's the same thing. This and this are the same. So now what we're going to do is when it starts, we don't want any rotation. So we're going to control click this to the start. Okay, so it starts at 0. Okay, and I can put in a 0 on the Y. And this should be over here. Oops. So on the, it should be 0.25 and 0 because it's 25%. So that should make sense. So now what we're going to do is we're going to start moving the slider, and right here, right around 50%, I want it to rotate a little bit. So we're going to left click this, okay, and we're going to move it up. Okay, so we'll move it up to about the full amount. Remember, I could always increase this amount later, the 10 degrees, if I want more rotation. Okay, so maybe I do. Maybe I want to make it 12 degrees. Okay, so then so now that's gonna be happening. It's gonna start down, but then when it hits its up position, it's full up. It's gonna be rotated a little bit. Now I'm gonna go to where it hits the ground, which is right here, right? And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the C motion. Sorry about that. Okay. Sometimes this happens. All you have to do is go show in separate window. Here it comes back. So the thing is that right here, I want to have it not be at 0. I want to have it be up a little bit. Maybe not 12. Maybe we'll go this much. So it's rotating negatively. Okay, because over here, it's rotating, starts at 0, rotates in this positive direction, but then when it hits, it's rotating negatively. Now, rather than just have it float back, and actually it goes underneath of this, so that's not cool either. So what I can do is I can select all of these joints and make them splines, okay, rather than cubic splines. And then I could fix things like that. Like I could just make this flat. Okay, so rather than have it sort of like, and I could do that with this one here too, and I could do that with this one. So rather have it just sort of like float back to normal, like see, it's like, you know, it's like, you don't want that either. So, or I don't want that. So I want to just have it like maybe go 3 frames later and have it like snap back up to 0. So that way the foot kind of like snaps back to its original position. The other thing I want to do is I want to right click this and say link end tangents. And by linking end tangents, you notice that if I take one end tangent, you know, the other one moves sort of complementary to it. And that's useful to smoothing out motion. Okay. So the thing is that now if I were to go ahead and if I were to rotate it, it kind of like, see, it kind of snaps back to its original position. It doesn't float as much. Okay, if you want to have it faster, you just move this point closer this way or slower. Okay, so now what's happening is that we've got this kind of motion here. So let me close this. Okay, and what I can do now is I can just go ahead to the other foot, add a reference to it, and refer it to that pitch rotation on the other one. So now what's happening is that you have that kind of motion, which looks better. Okay. And now, so actually it's already online, so he's already walking. So you can see how that we have a walk cycle. Now he's walking a little bit slow. So for example, I can up the stride to like 125 instead of 100. So now he's walking a little faster. I mean, his stride is longer. If you actually wanted to have the foot to go faster, you could lower this if he's doing like a fast walk. You can make that 15. Now he's walking faster because it's only taking 15 frames to cycle through the walk rather than 30 frames. Before it was on 30. Okay, so now it's a slower walk. Okay, and then if you make it 15, it's a faster walk. And then the stride allows you to have like a bigger gait, like a larger gait. So now it's at 189. So now it's a larger gait. Okay, so we'll leave it at 125 and at 30 just because for frame rates and things like that. So now the thing is that, so now we've got that. Now actually what I want to actually just modify it a little bit more really quickly. I want to drag the pelvis in as a target. Now, as soon as I drag the pelvis in, it's like, what just happened? What? Let me press play. Ugh, that looks terrible. I mean, it looks kind of weird, but it's not really happening the way we want. That's because it comes in as a step. Remember, if it's not a step, we don't want it to be a step. So we take it off of the steps, okay? So now it's coming in, right? And what we want to do is we want to give this like a little bit of, we want to rotate it on its Z-axis. How do I know it's its Z-axis? Because the Z is along the joint. So we give it a rotate along the Z-axis, okay, on the pelvis. We click add, right? Let's go to that. Comes in with some data. Okay, let's pop this out, okay? Over here, I want to kill, I want to kill all this data because I want to start from scratch, okay? And the way that I want it to go is when the feet are sort of like in this position, which is the widest that they'll be on one side, okay? I want it to, let's also give it, it already has a roll of 10 degrees. I want to roll it a little bit, let's say 5 degrees. See, I'm not going all the way down. You could either control the amount here or here, okay? So now we're gonna go to the other spot where it's like on the other side, which is gonna be right here. And I wanna go about 5 degrees over here, okay? And then back, so then the thing is that I want to actually, I want to do really, is I want to make this spline. You know what, let's just change this to 5 and go all the way because it'll be clearer. I could have done it the other way, but this is just going to be clearer for you to see what's going on. And then for the thing is that for these, okay, I want to, well, what I want to do is select all of these and make them splines, okay? And then I want to zero out their rotation, okay? And then there you have it, actually. So then these are actually on its way. It picks up the negative tangent going this way. So this should work fine. And then if I click play, okay, you see that it's actually moving side to side, I mean, a little bit as he walks, which is kind of cool. Let's say I want to add another one and sort of have like an up and down motion. So in this one, I want to rotate it along the y-axis of the joint. I'm sorry, not the y-axis of the joint. I want to have it rotate along, yeah, the y-axis of the joint. Okay, so the thing is that I'm going to go ahead back to the C motion, and I'm going to go ahead to the thing, and I'm going to say twist, okay, like that, add that, okay, and then once again on the twist, we wanted to have like, which actually comes in, well, first of all, it's way too much, but we wanted to have it, when the feet are apart. I wanted to sort of twist back. Let me get rid of this one temporarily. And then when the feet go to the other side, I wanted to twist back again, actually. But when it's up to its full amount like that, I want it to twist forward. And this is way too much twisting, so I'm going to lower it to about, well, it's a 10. I want it to be 5 or less. Let's make it 4 degrees. Okay, so then you get this kind of motion in there. And then what happens is that if I hit play, you know, we get a little bit of that. That's a little bit too much. Let's just say we want it 2 degrees of a motion. Okay, and then we can go ahead and create this walk cycle like that. And that's how to use C motion to create the basics of a walk cycle. And you know, you have it. Now, like just like in the bird, if what I wanted to is I can go ahead and I can take the spline tool, right? And I can, you know, sort of like, you know, create kind of like a, you know, a spline type of walk like this. Right? And so something like that, whatever. And the thing is that now I can go ahead under C motion, I can tell it, walk on a spline. Okay, and it asks me which spline, and we just drag the spline in. And now you'll see that rather than walk in a straight line, he's going to walk in a spline. Okay. And so then that's pretty cool. The other thing that's cool, so you can have him walk around a set. You know, have them walk wherever you want them to walk. The other thing that you can do, actually, I'll go back to line and let me hide the spline for a minute, because the thing is what you can do, although it'll work with spline too, but I just didn't want to make things confusing, is I can put, like, for example, any sort of polygons or spline or meshes, right? I'll make this one a little bit bigger. I'll make it kind of like this big, right? And I'll lower its segments to like whatever 50, so it's a little bit less. And then what I'll do is so something like that, right? So what I can do is I can tell the spline, I can tell the C motion on the route, I could say there's a surface there, so I can go ahead and drag this landscape in there, right? And then what happens is that it will start walking up the surface. But as you can see, what's happening is that his feet are kind of like going into the surface. Okay, let me make this a little bit bigger too, and over to here. His feet are kind of going into the surface, and that's doesn't look really that good. So what I can do is you can go to the thing and C motion, and you can say for the offset, you could raise the offset to be kind of like over to here, right? And then what's happening is that now his feet don't go into the surface as much. You could raise that, you know, and then his feet are sticking up off of the surface. And there's other things you can do too, like you can say maybe align targets, and now you see how the feet are actually aligned. Now it's too high, so you have to probably bring it up. But you can have that sort of doing its thing. And you can have this thing walk on surfaces along that thing. So, and you can actually add the spline too. So if you put the spline in there, I don't really, you know, I'm just winging it, but if you go ahead to the spline, to the C motion, and you drag in the object spline path, and we drag in it's in there already. You can see that he's on the path and on the surface. And that's basically it. So let's see, are there any questions now?
Yes, you read my mind.
Okay.
We've got a few that have come in based on this, and also some really great comments. I don't know if you're seeing them, but
no, I haven't been,
really,
but I will.
Some really lovely positive comments. So
okay.
A couple of questions. So Christian was wondering, could you use C motion to smoothly switch between walking very slow to normal to maybe running?
Yeah, well, the thing about a run cycle and a walk cycle are they are different. But
yeah.
And what it is that you can use a system which is kind of an advanced topic, but it's Cinema 4D's, it's called the it's called the motion system, the motion mode. And what you could do is you could save out a C motion action. Remember last time we took a save preset? So if you design a walk cycle that you want to use over and over again, you don't have to do it every time. Okay, you're setting up a character or similar characters. You know, you don't have to do it every time. Okay, you could have a library of these things. But with the motion system is you can take two things and you can blend between them. Okay, so you can start it out with a walk cycle and then blend it into a run cycle. Or the other thing you can do, let's say in this thing, let me kill the landscape. Let me go back to the C motion thing. Let me make the well, the offset is grayed out now because there's no object there. Let me go back to the object and go back to static. So now he's just walking again. I mean, just walking, not static. Let me go to a line. Okay. So the thing is that what I can do is I can have this start like this, right? And what I can do is I can, by the way, I just want to say that if you change this angle, you can change the direction he's walking. So you can have him, you know, walk in this direction. You could change this, change it to that direction. And you could also put like a little gradient in there. So he can be walking up like steps or something. So he's like walking up. But as far as, so anyway, what you can do on the C motion is, yeah, so you would have to use the motion system if you wanted to blend, you know, between two motions.
Cool.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Sure.
Wesley was wondering, can C motion animation be baked out? So could we export?
Yeah, you can. You can bake it out. That's kind of an advanced thing. I don't really want to get into it now because it's going to take too much time, but yes, you can bake it out. You can actually also do something else. This was kind of an advanced thing. We didn't really want to show it actually, but you can bake out its steps. Okay. Like for example, what I can do, I don't really want to really get too much into this, but you see, I've created steps here. I've created 100 steps. And now what's happening is if I play this like this, see, it actually, so it's actually going to each one of these steps. Okay. So what I could do is these steps are actually a bunch of little things here. See that? So I can actually take one, right? And I could, let's say, for example, in this one, he wanted to step out of the way of something. Okay. So you can see that here, you know, he kind of steps out of the way. So, or like, let's say, you know, he wanted to step, you know, like that. And then on this one here, oops. Hello. You know, you move that one over here. So now he's like doing like that. So the thing is that what you can do on the C motion though is in the steps area. You could say under the steps, you could now there is a way to do this actually, steps all, where you can have the center of gravity be in the center, because right now he, see, well, let me just see something here. These are one of those tangents. So if he goes over here, you know, right now you can have it so that way the well, this is the weight towards the step. But anyway, there's a way that you can have it that it will keep its center of gravity on the pelvis. So that way the center of gravity is always in the middle. But you can always do that. And this is actually a really useful thing because with the steps selected like that, you can do all kinds of, they don't just have to move in like a, like a straight type of walk. You could have it move however you want. So you can both, you can bake it out to keyframes and you could bake out steps.
That's really great. That's really cool to see. Cheers, Joe.
Yeah.
So I have one more quick question. There's actually a whole bunch in here, but I don't want to kind of like derail and take too much of your time.
Okay.
But Demetrius was wondering, can I have an action and a reference to an action and have only one of them active? He says, I don't want to have to manually use an
Actually,
action
say that again.
I'll
say that again. Just start over again.
Sorry. So can I have an action and a reference to an action and have only one of them active? He doesn't want to have to manually use an action for each leg just to resolve a one-time misstep of his character.
I'm not sure I understand the question. Say it one more time. Can I have an
Or if you head over to the questions area, I can kind of point you roughly towards where it is. It's about.
Actually, let me go to the C motion. And so here's a reference. They want to disable one reference?
Yeah, so he said, can I have an action and a reference to an action, but have only one of them active? So his issue is if he's got a one-time misstep on his character, he doesn't want to have to manually use an action for each leg just to resolve that one small issue.
You could like disable an action here. Okay, like if you want to disable one of the actions or one of the references. So so you could do that. I'm a little bit unclear on the other stuff, but so rather than do that, let's move on. Is there any other questions? But you can uncheck an action.
Yeah, no, hopefully if that doesn't answer it, Demetrius, just let us know in the questions and we'll, leave it to the end. So yeah, that's majority of the questions. There's a couple of others relating to transferring C motion to Unreal.
Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you could bake out keyframes. So I mean, any keyframe you can bake out. I don't think it takes like C motion C motions, because when you save out a C motion preset, it gives you like test, right? And then we're going to save it like, we'll just save it, I don't know, in this file here. Okay, or we should do it in class 4. Okay, so it saves it as a CMO file, C motion file. Okay, so I mean, obviously, Unreal's not going to take that, but it will. But if you bake out the keyframes and then use, whatever the bridge, the plugin, the C4D plugin to Unreal, then you can just get the keyframes, and yes, you can use that as well.
Cool. Yeah. Cheers, Joe. Yeah. Well, I'll let you get on. But yeah, any other questions? Okay. We can always save them to the end or whenever's a good point.
Right. Great. And I see some of your comments. Hi to Neil's mom. Thank you for joining us. Thank you, Bernd and Erin and G. Hanks and everybody. So I'll read them more closer later. But anyway, so all right. So it was important to learn about IK and feet and legs. That's a really important topic, okay, in setting up characters. And we've gone over a lot of the fundamentals of doing that right now. And now we're finally, congratulations, we've come to the point that we've all been waiting for, okay? And that is, we're going to rig a full 3D character. So you know, I would say drum roll please, but there's no drummer around here. But maybe that's a sound effect you can get, Ellie, in the future. You know, you could hit a little button.
Do you know what?
But,
I was literally just thinking, I wish there was a way that I could do a drum roll sound effect.
right. So, but anyway, so you know, we've gone, you know, so we've gone through a lot of some of the fundamental things, concepts of riggings. Now we're gonna put it all together. But the thing is that we're not going to build a full character rig because that would be a lot of work. We're going to build in Cinema 4D's rigging, auto rigging sort of templates. But the good thing is that if you know about rigging and you know about some of the concepts we've already you know, gone through, then number one, it will help you to understand a lot more about what's going on with the character object. And it will, and you can also extend the character object with custom controls and custom stuff, you know, so you don't just have to use it, okay? So that's really useful to do, is to have, you know, you can have, you can, to know about rigging. But now we're gonna go to this character. Now, and here's the character, okay? So I made this little character. It's nothing, you know, that complicated. He's not like a spaceman. He doesn't have all controls on his space suit, or, you know, oxygen tubes, or, you know, anything like that. Or he doesn't, he's not a swashbuckler with a sword. It's just sort of a basic mesh where I tried to get away with as little, as clean of an edge flow as I could possibly do. I've also gave him 3 fingers to make it a little bit easier to deal with. And as you can see the edge flow there through it, and he's made out of different parts, okay? So if you look at, for example, the things, right? You can see that he's made out of, like, let's go to the object tab, right? And you can see that he's got a bunch of different he's made out of a bunch of different objects. So he's got a head, okay? And you can see that there are some things inside of his head, like some eyes, a left eye and a right eye. Okay, he's got some teeth. He's got a tongue, okay? He's got a hat, okay? He's got, now for his body, it's just this one unibody thing, you know, which you can do. I mean, if that's, you know, what you're after, you can also break the body up. But the point is, he's actually made out of more than one mesh. So far, all the things we've rigged were just one mesh, okay? But this is actually several meshes. We've got the hands, right? And let me just check the chat a little bit. I like to do that once in a while. And gotcha. Hello to everybody again. So anyway, so he's got all this stuff going on, and he's got shoes. The shoes are also one thing. Let me hide the body so you can see what his shoes look like. So here's the body. Shoes are just a couple little booties there. And this is the guy we want to rig. Right now he's not rigged, so obviously if you were to choose the body and move it, you know, it would just sort of move all together as one thing, or to rotate it and stuff like that. Okay, so then that's the other thing. So he's got a belt. Okay, and here's the belt. And basically what happens is that if you hide, and so all of these things are inside of a null, and the null is inside of a subdivision surface. So I'm gonna uncheck the subdivision surface, and things are about to get ugly, because we're gonna look at the cage, the polygon cage, before it's smooth. And it looks like this, pretty ugly, horrible to look at because I really tried to get with as few polygons as I could get, because the less polygons you have, the less there is to weight. Okay, so that's it with it off, and that's with it smoothed. Okay, and we don't have to make a separate subdivision for each object if you put them in a null and you put that null in the subdivision. Okay, so that's a little handy tip for you. All right, so now what happened is that that's all said and good, and now we're ready to actually start weighting this character. So the way to, what we're going to do is we are going to go into the character object, and we're going to go ahead and we're going to create, into the character menu, and we're going to create a character object. Okay, and so we've created this character object, and as soon as we create this character object, you see that you get a little arrow here, sort of like facing. Now, before you get started with everything, with anything, it's a good idea to first tell the character object how high your character is. Now, the thing is that you want to sort of model your characters roughly the size that they are going to be. So keep that in mind when you're building a character. You don't want to make it 2 inches tall, and you don't want to make it, 80 feet tall, unless you're making a giant. In that case, you do want to make it 80 foot tall. Or unless you're making, like, I don't know if you've ever seen The Incredible Shrinking Man, that movie where he gets to be really small, then you do want to make him 2 inches tall. But if you're making a normal sized character, you want to sort of create him at around 6 feet tall. If he's like, an average human, or if he's like a child, you want to make it about 4 feet or 3 feet, or if it's a baby, about 2 feet. Okay, so in general, that's the thing you want to make it. Now, how do I know how big this character is? Okay, I can take like the hat, for example, and I can go into points mode, okay? And I can click on the highest point of it, which is like right around there, okay? And then I can go to the coordinates area right here, the coordinate manager, and I can see that I can go to world coordinates, not object coordinates, because it says it's only 5.428 centimeters because it's basing it on the center of the hat. Okay, we want to go to world coordinates. Okay, and that's going to tell you it is from the bottom of the world, which is right here, to this point right here. Okay, it is 182.217 centimeters. Okay, so I could just copy that number, and I can go to the character object, and in the basic tab under this auto size, take that off and click here and paste that in there and hit return or enter. And now roughly when you create the components for this thing, they're going to be roughly into the right place rather than having them all down here or all up here or whatever. Okay, so that's the first thing you do. The second thing you do is that in the character object, under the object tab, as soon as you create it, we're going to be making an advanced biped rig. There's other things. There's a quadruped rig. Somebody asked about animals. Okay, there's a bird. There's other things as well. So we're going to make the advanced biped rig. And what we're going to do is we're going to create the first component we're going to make is we're going to make a root component. And that's sort of like a base thing. That's the root. Okay. Now the next thing we're going to be making is we're going to be making a spine IKFK blend. Okay, so we're going to click that. And what happens, I'm going to hide the character actually for a minute. Okay, is that you can see that we get a bunch of controls here. And this is actually the spine, and actually goes up the neck all the way up to the head and the pelvis stuff. Okay, once we get the spine selected, created and selected, you get some other options. Okay, if I go to the root, those options go away. I'm back on the spine, those options come back. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to create the leg, and they're going to become IKFK legs, which means that they're going to be built with an IK to FK switch, and we'll talk about that later. So if I click on that, I create a leg. Okay, so our leg is created. However, I want to create two legs, so it's easier when your spine component is selected. Hold down the control key and click leg, and then it creates two legs. Okay, some of the things here should be familiar to you. Like, for example, these things is, what do you think these are? Those are the leg poles to point the knee. These things on the bottom are the foot controllers, okay? So now we're gonna go back to the spine, okay? And oh, by the way, you can also create toes. I can go ahead and I can create a toe, and you can see I'm creating toes here, okay? But I don't have toes on this model, so I'm not gonna create toes, okay? But I do have fingers, so I will be creating fingers, okay? So now we're gonna go back to the spine. We're going to control click the legs. I'm sorry, I'm not the legs. We're gonna go back, we're gonna control click the arms, okay? And then what happens is that we create our arm controls, okay? And now we're gonna create, with both of our arms selected, we're gonna create hands. Okay, we're gonna create, those are the hands. Okay, now with both hands created, we're gonna create thumbs. Okay, we're gonna go back to selecting both of the hands, and we're gonna create, right, we're gonna create the hands, and instead of thumbs, we're gonna create fingers. Okay, so we created one finger there. Okay, we're gonna go back to the hands. Sorry, hand and hand. And we're gonna create another finger. Okay, go back to the hand. We're gonna create a third finger. Okay, so now we've got that, but we're not quite finished yet because we're gonna go back to the spine, I believe, and we're going to hold down the control, and we're going to click, and we're gonna create eyes. There's the eyes controller. Okay? And what we also want to do is go back to the spine, and we want to create a jaw. We've created a jaw control there. This is right here. And there are other things we can create, but we're not going to really be needing them for this. Okay, but these are our main components for creating the rig. So right now in the character object, if you go into the object tab in the character object, we're in this mode right now, in the build mode, okay? And we built the rig in the build mode. Is there any questions so far about this?
So not actually related to this yet, unless they come
Okay.
in now.
Okay.
No, I
So,
can't see
very
any
good.
at the
Let's keep
moment.
going then. So what we want to do now is we're ready to go into the next phase of building the character, or of setting up the character object. And the next phase is to go to the Adjust tab. Okay. Now in the Adjust tab, we have these little circles. Okay. So we're going to go to a front mode, a front view of this. Okay. And what we're going to do is we're going to kind of like, we're going to bring back our character geometry. Okay. And you can see that things aren't really aligned because it doesn't know. It got it pretty close because we put the size of the character, but these things are not in the right position. So what we're going to do is we're going to set this up so these things become in the right position. And so in one thing that we want to make sure is that symmetry is checked. So if we move something on one side, you know, like a control on one side, no, you have to be in object or model mode to do this. Otherwise it's not going to work. Okay. So if I move one side, the other side is actually adjusting as well. Okay. If I take that symmetry off, obviously, okay, then I'm going to adjust one side and the other side is not. Now that's really useful if you're doing like an unsymmetrical character. Let's say one guy, he's got like a poor guy's got like a he was in a war accident, so one arm is kind of maybe different than the other arm. Okay, so then you take the symmetry off. Okay, but we want the symmetry back on. And what we want to do is we want to go ahead and we want to start adjusting it. So the first thing I want to adjust is this one right now, the hips. So we're going to click on that one. We're going to drag that up right into the center of this, belt. Okay. And then what we want to do is we want to take the bottom of the pelvis and we want to drag it so it's kind of like right here. Okay. So we've set those up. That's all well and good. Now, this joint here is called the chest. So usually you could think of this as this chest to be either in the center or actually right under the sternum. Okay, so we're going to click on that. We're going to drag that right here to there, the sternum. So that's fine. Next thing we want to do is, this is like the collarbone. Okay, so you could bring it up to where the collarbone is, but we're going to drag this sort of like right, kind of like right here. This is fine. Kind of right in the center of this whole chain of the arm. That's where I like to put it. A lot of this actually has to do with your character design. Okay, so it depends on how your character was designed and built that you're going to know where to put these things. But for this character, I want it right here. Okay, and then what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this. Now this is the shoulder. I would have actually named this the bicep, but they called it the shoulder. That's fine. So we're going to take this and we're going to put it like right in the center of that thing, that arm. Okay, and the other one's going, symmetrically. Okay, so now we want to take the elbow and we want to drag it into the middle of the elbow, right there. Okay. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take this. This is the wrist. And I want to take this and drag it all the way out to the wrist, and the wrist is going to be like right around here. Okay. And if you want, you can move it down if you want a little bit because it's not quite in the center. It doesn't matter. You don't have to keep it in a straight line. Okay. So we've got it right sort of in the center of the wrist. Okay, now things are going to get a little bit more challenging because we're going to have to do the hand, and the hand is challenging, okay, to align everything. Okay, so what we're first going to do is we're going to go to a top view. Okay. Oh, by the way, that's the other thing we have to do is we've been doing the front view, but we actually also have to do the top view. So the thing is that we're going to go ahead and we're going to hide the head. We're going to hide the head. And we're going to hide the hat. Okay. And we're going to take this collarbone again. Actually, now, by the way, if I move this collarbone, oh, okay, it moves by itself. That's fine. So we're going to take this and we're going to move it like sort of right into the center of there. But however, and then we're going to take this shoulder. We're going to move it. Now notice that when I move this, the elbows move. Some things move in a hierarchy, some don't. Let's say later on you want to move the shoulder and not move the elbow. That's a common thing. Okay. So if you want to do that, you can actually go ahead and hold down the 7 key. Okay. While you're moving it. And then you're just moving that one. Okay. But in this case, I don't really mind if I move all of them because they're all kind of in the wrong position anyway. So we're going to go right here, right to about right here. Now we're going to go to the elbow. We're going to move the elbow right to about right here. Okay. So if you want, you can sort of hide the geometry. If you want to get that to be in a straight line, it doesn't matter actually. You don't have to have it in a straight line. So we're going to go on now for the wrist. We want to come right sort of like in the middle of the hand. Okay. Okay, now things are going to start getting a little hairy, but that's okay because we have everything under control. So we're going to go ahead, we're going to take this, I guess you call this, I don't know, what is this name? This is called the palm base for the FK digit 2, because generally you don't put IK on fingers. Fingers are almost always animated with FK. Having said that, I'm sure there are reasons why you would want to use IK sometimes on fingers, but they're generally IK. So we're going to move that sort of right here in the center of that. We're going to take this one. Now this one is kind of like the base of the first digit. Now, you could move them here if that's the look that you want. You can move them here, and then the fingers will bend at this point right here. But if you look at a hand, actually, the digits, if you look at your hand right now, let's say, the digits really bend at the knuckle. So we're going to move this back to where the knuckle would be, which is right around there. Okay. Now, this is going to go ahead and be sort of like right here. Okay. And then this is going to be kind of like right here. And then this is going to be at the tip of it. Okay. And then we've got the pinky going, or in this case, it's not really the pinky because he only has 3 fingers. But what we're going to do is we're going to go just quickly, we're going to do this with the other one. Okay. We're going to put that there. This is going to go in the knuckle, sort of in the center right here. This is going to go here, where this is going to bend. This is going to go here, where this is going to bend. And this is going to go to the tip of the finger. Okay. And then we're quickly going to do that with this one. There, knuckle, first joint, second joint, and then that's going to go to the tip. Okay, so now we want to switch to kind of a front view. Oh, and these are actually kind of in a pretty good place, but the thing is that we want to go back to the top. We want to select all of these. Shift click, and shift click, so they're all clicked actually, or clacked. And we want to go to the front view, and we want to move them sort of in the center of that. So they're kind of all in the center of the hand. So now we set that up. Okay, now for the thumb is the hardest one to set up. What you have to do for the thumb is, first of all, what I want to do is I want to take the thumb over here, the bottom of the thumb, and I want to move it all the way back to kind of like right around here. Okay, and then now here's the thing. This is not square with the view, so this presents a little bit of a problem to where to actually move these joints. Okay. However, the thing is that what I want to do before I even move this thing, oops, is right now, you might be asking what all these circles are. Okay, and I'm going to hide the hand. And I'm going to give you a little preview over here because we're going to get out of the adjust mode. Because right now, remember, we're in the adjust mode. We're going to go into the animate mode. Okay, and what these little things are, actually, we can go into the binding mode. That would be a better mode to look at. Well, actually, what I can do, no, it's the animate mode. By the way, when you go into animate mode, you don't see the bones anymore. And that makes sense because you don't want to see the bones when you're animating. You just want to see the controllers. Okay? But you can show the bones in animate mode by going to the display tab, and under viewport, visible, you could say full hierarchy. So now you can see in animate mode, you can see the bones and the controllers. So what I could do, so what are these little circles for on a finger? So if I click one, like this one, right? And if I were to rotate it like that, you notice that it'll rotate the whole finger like that. See that? So you can also go individually and rotate each joint individually if you wanted to. Okay, you could rotate the joints individually, or you could use this whole thing to rotate the whole finger. That's what those circles are. Okay. So the thing is let's actually in the display, let's go back to just hierarchy. I mean components. Let's go back in the character mode, back to adjust. Okay. Because the thing is that right, and let's go back to the hand. Sorry. The thing is that these the thumb really wants to rotate in from this side, okay? But right now this is actually in the wrong place. So you know what? Let's first actually start positioning this, or yeah, we're actually going to start positioning these bones, or we can get started on this. Actually, it's kind of complicated. That's why it's a little hard to talk about, but we want to rotate this whole thing, and we want to rotate it down kind of like, so that way it's going to control the thumb down here. I'll get it in roughly the right place, and I will fix it later. I will adjust it later. So anyway, so this first one is kind of in the right place. Okay, if you want to go to the side view, okay, we might want to drag it down a little bit to about right here. Okay. And then what I want to do is I want to take the second one. Now, how do I actually go ahead and do it? I found a little trick that I use, okay, is that if I go to the, if I go through a wireframe view, okay, and if I look at these rings, okay, I'm sorry, I got to go to a wireframe view in the perspective mode. If I go to these little rings and I sort of line up my viewport with the one that I really want, which is this one. So if I line up the isoparms like that, so I'm kind of like looking at it dead on like that, I find that now I can go ahead and move that thing right into the center there, okay? Then I've got to switch to this view, line it up in a similar way, so that way it's like right there. And first of all, let me bring this thing up because it's way down here. So actually, let me bring this way to it's way down here. So if I were to bring this, like kind of line that up, and I were to bring this to the center here, it actually works pretty good. Oops. It actually works pretty good. And if I go to the top now again, to this mode, and drag this to the top, what is going on? Actually, that shouldn't be doing that. Huh. Let me actually go to this view, sort of a side view, okay? And now I'm going to drag this into the center of that ring, like that. That's where I want it. Let me go back to a top view and drag this maybe like that. That's actually the better way to do it, really, come to think of it. But it was working the other way kind of good. But now if I go to like a thing, you can see it's kind of like right in the center of that ring. See that? It's right in the center. So that's the better way to use the top and front and side. I don't know if that makes a lot of sense, but sometimes you could actually use that other trick that I was telling you, and it actually works really good. So anyway, So right now that's where you want it to be. So let's actually go ahead and take this thing, the next one, and move it also to the center of this, and go to the front view. Move that down to the center of this ring, like that. And now it's in the center of that ring. See, it's nicely in the center. And do it one more time. Take that, bring it to the tip, go to the front view, bring that down to here. Oops. Straight down. Okay, and now what's happening is that we'll go to a road shading with lines, and now those things are nicely in where they're supposed to be. So now the hand's done. Okay, so now let's move up to the head. So let's show the head, which is being hid right now, and the hat. I didn't bother doing the top of the head because I'd had a hat on. But if you were doing the top of the head, or if you wanted to get into Cinema 4D's hair system, then you would want to model the head. Hair system is very powerful in Cinema 4D. Okay, it's a great hair system. Okay, excellent hair system. But he doesn't have any hair because I didn't want to bother doing that. It would have added a whole nother another class anyway. So the thing is that what we're going to do is we are going to go ahead to the neck joint, okay, right here. And we're going to take this neck joint and we're going to drag it right to the bottom of the neck, which is going to be right about here. And then what we're going to do is we're going to go to the head joint. So this is where the head's going to rotate. You know, when you swing your head up and down, like if you're saying yes, this is going to be where the head rotates. So the question is where do you want to put this? So we're going to put it right here. Okay, like right here. And then what we want to do is we want to put like the top of the head, we want to bring it up to the top of the head, like right up there. And for the jaw usually rotates kind of like right below the ear. So we'll take the jaw, and we'll kind of put it, I don't know, like maybe right here. Right in front and right underneath the ear. And then this is going to be the bottom of the jaw. So we're just going to take this and we're going to put it like right here. So that's going to control the rotation of the jaw. Now for the eyes, here's the eye. Okay, what we want to do is we want to take the eye and we want to drag it right into the center of this sphere. So it's going to be right here because that's where the eye is going to rotate from. Okay, so you want it to be right in the center of the sphere. Okay, and now if you look at a front view, okay, you also want to drag that. Kind of hard to see the wireframe, so I'll go into a lines mode. You want to drag that right in the center of that. Okay, so now the eyes are set up. Okay, so now we're not done yet, but we have the whole upper body adjusted correctly. But now we've got to do the legs. So what we want to do is we want to take this, which is they call the hip, and we want to take this and drag it up right here because that's where the hip's going to bend. Okay. And next we're going to take the knee, and we're going to take the knee and we're going to drag it down to where the knee's going to bend, which is going to be right here. Now hold on. Why does that look wrong? What did I do? Did I do something wrong? The hips are there, that's right. And by the way, you have to move this back. Okay. So, but what we'll do is we'll go to a side view. Also, I'm noticing that the spine is not a lot, should be in the middle of the body. So you can't forget to put things in the middle of the body either. And then the bottom of the chest should also be. Now look at that. Here's for an example. If I start moving this back, this joint, everything on the top goes with it. And all of the hard work that we did to align all these joints goes with it. So in that case, now you really do want to use the 7 key. So you can move that, oops. Hold on, the 7 key. Hello, that's funny. This should definitely work. Well, that should definitely work, but it doesn't. So that's not a problem, because what we're going to do is we're going to we're just going to move everything back, because I don't want to try to figure out why that's not working unless somebody knows in the chat how come the 7 key is not working. Let me see here. But anyway, no, that's not a problem. We're just going to go straight up, okay? And then what we're going to do is we're going to go back to a top view, and we're just simply going to move the arms back this way to where they should be, which is right about there. And we're going to move the collarbone back so it's straight. And then we're just going to move the head back. And everything's good on the fingers. We're just going to move the head back, the neck back to here. And since the eyes are kind of crucial, we'll just move it a little bit more, because that's where it was. Since the eyes are kind of crucial, we'll just move the eyes back by hand. Okay, so then now it's fine. So what we want to do is that we do want to move the hips back so they're in the center of the legs. Oh, that's right. I forgot that on this, we wanted to double check. This is still, the thumb is still not really where you want it to be, okay, because you want it to bend, you want it to sort of bend along this. So you want a little bit more down. Okay, like that. So that way the thumb bends correctly. And then we just quickly have a glance at the things, and everything looks fine. Oops. It's a little bit off, actually. See, if I hold down the 7 key here, I bet you it works. See, it does work. It doesn't take the child, but for some reason the spine doesn't want to do that. Okay, so, and everything's good. This is in the center of this ring, so that's good. So now the controls for the thumb are set up correctly. Okay, and now just quickly, I'm just going to do the legs. So for the legs, we got that. We have the knee over here. We're going to bring this down to like right about here, maybe a little forward. So the leg bends just a little bit forward, which will help the IK. This is going to go to the ankle, which is the ankle is right here. That's where the foot's going to bend. Okay. And then what's going to happen is that Now with the foot, there's a lot going on with the foot. It's kind of like the hand. I kind of going to perspective and it's not. Okay, I'll just choose this. Okay. So with the foot, there's a lot going on. So let's go ahead into road shading lines. So there's a lot of controls here. Okay. So for example, one of the control. So first of all, let's get the easy stuff out of the way, and let's go to the let's go to the feet. Okay, and then this is called the ball. Okay. So, or we could start with the heel rotation. Well, we'll do that later. First, let's go to the ball. The ball is where the foot you'll either stand on your tiptoes on the ball, or you'll wiggle your toes from the ball. That's what the ball of the foot is. So we want to move that to like right here. Okay. And then this is the toes. Okay. So then that should go sort of like right here. Now there's other stuff too. Okay. For example, this over here is the heel rotation. So the heel rotation should go sort of like right where the heel is going to rotate, which is right here. Okay, so if you were to tap your foot to the music, that's where you want the heel rotation is. Okay, now there's a couple of other things. There's what's called ball rock. Sounds like a fun time, ball rock. But what it really is that if you take your foot and you were to like rock it left to right, you know, it doesn't do it from the center. It does it. Think of the tilt kind of like on the lamp. It does it from the edges. So this is ball rock inner and this is ball rock outer. So the ball rock outer, oops, made a mistake there. The ball rock outer, it actually moves this rotation thing. So let me use the 7 key when I do it. The ball rock outer is we're gonna put it right sort of like right here. And on the ground. I don't know why it's not on the ground. Right here, I'm gonna put it right here. And then the ball rock inner, which should be somewhere right here. Okay, we want to put this on the ground too. And also we're going to kind of move it right here. And that's moving this rotation too. So let me use the 7 key and stick that right here. Okay, and then that's it. Set up. You've set up the feet. They're ready to be animated. Okay. So right now we've just adjusted the whole rig to fit our character. Okay. So the question is that the next step in this process, okay, the first step was to build the character. The second step was to adjust the rig. All right. Now, by the way, I just wanted to show you something. If I were to take this rig here, and if I were to go into the display mode and I was going to say in the manager, I were to say, right now you only see what are called components, okay, which are useful. And we'll talk about that more later. But if I were to take this rig, right, and in the object manager, I said full hierarchy, you can actually take a look at the rig and how it's built. Okay, this is kind of like what we were doing before when we were building rigs. There's a hierarchy of joints, right? And some of these joints a lot of them have constraints, okay? And that has to do with the controllers, by the way. And some of them even have espresso tags on them. Some of them also have protection tags on them. Okay, and if you keep going down, there's also point selection tags. And if you keep going down, at a certain point, it stops being joints, and then it starts being controllers. These are all the controllers, okay, in your thing. And then there's some more joints here, okay? And then there's some more controllers, and more controllers, more joints. There's a lot of joints here in case you haven't noticed, okay? So you could build this yourself, or you could use the character object, and I would highly recommend using the character object. It's great. So anyway, let's go back to the character object under the display tab, and we're going to go back to just components, which will clean it up a little bit for us. And so we were in the character thing, we were in the object tab, we were under build, we built the rig, we've adjusted the rig, and the next step is to bind the rig, okay? So bind the rig, what does that mean? It means we need to weight the points of this thing. So we're just going to get it started here because we're out of time. So we'll get it started here, but we're going to move to the binding tab. And the first thing you want to do is you want to take all the geometry that you want bound to this rig, which is going to be all of this, okay? And we're going to go, actually, we're going to go back to the character object first, and we're going to freeze this. We're going to lock this view. Okay, we're going to lock that view. And then we're going to go back to this, and you could even drag them in one at a time, or you can drag them all at once. Okay, I will drag them in all at once. And as soon as I do that, now all of this geometry is now bound to this rig. And you'll notice that they each get a weight tag and a skin object was made. And rather than each thing having its own skin object, it put a skin object at the top of all of them under this null, which is like a shortcut. You don't have to make so many skin objects. This one will handle all of them. But that's where I want to stop now, actually, because we want to continue in our next class to actually weighting and then looking at the features of this rig, because there's a lot of hidden features, okay? And figuring out how we could use those features to animate the rig. And there's going to be a lot of interesting stuff in that. For example, when to switch from FK to IK. Okay, there's a lot of reasons why. That's why a lot of this rig actually has, in different parts of it, has all kinds of controls built into this rig, including ways you can switch parts of it from FK to IK. And we're also going to rig the face a little bit. So, weight the face and rig it a little bit. So, and we'll talk more about facial animation in the last class. So anyway, that's it. Are there any questions?
So I'm just having a look. That was, once again, such an incredible session.
Thank you.
Yeah, just some really nice comments, really. So there was one quick question from Pratik. Could we, when you were talking about doing like FK or IK on the hand and the fingers, could you do a combination, or would you just stick to?
So basically, what's going to happen later on when we actually go ahead and animate this rig, I'll give you a little sneak peek, okay? So generally, you have this. This is the IK controller of the hand. So generally, the IK controller ends up being on the wrist. See that? Oh, well, there's auto weighting here actually already. We're going to get rid of the auto weighting, okay? But there is auto weighting because when you bind something with the character object, it gives you auto weights. So we'll just use this temporarily as an example. But the FK actually goes head to the hand, right? And then from then on, you use these things in an IK type of mode. Okay, so we'll talk about this stuff later, actually, because we don't want to rely. Pros don't rely on auto weighting. Okay, so, it's just not a pro thing. So If you don't know how to wait and you don't know how to like rig, then you can rely on auto waiting, but we don't want to. So generally you have IK until the wrist, okay? And then from the wrist on, it's all FK. So if you want to have them go like stop, that's all, you know, IK. But the thing is that from then on it's FK. Now, if you were creating like some kind of animation with a giant hand, okay, or actually, you know, even on this guy, even on something like this, like for example, let's say you want to have his fingers got some glue on them and they're stuck to the surface of the table. And you want him to be able to move his hand, but the fingers stick on the table. That could be funny. That could be a gag, right? You would use IK on the fingers. So yes, there are reasons why you could use IK on the fingers.
Cool. Cool, that's great to know.
I hope that made sense.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah, other than that, just having some really lovely comments.
Thank you so much.
In
I really do appreciate that.
Yeah, so Eno saying really incredible. Brain is boiling now. Thank you very, very much. Looking forward to next week's session. And Hannah was saying, already can't wait for next Wednesday. Fantastic and inspiring. Wonderful tips and tricks.
Everybody. Thank you, Anna. Thank you. And,
lots of lovely comments.
Drake,
what I might do, I'm going to
read these later.
Steal the screen from you really quickly.
Thank you.
Let me just steal the screen from you so we can just do the final little bits, and then we can let everyone head off. So yeah, once again, Joe, as you can see by the comments, an incredible couple of hours, a great.
Well, show your screen anyway. There you go. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no, so hopefully you can see my screen. Is that right? I've just shared that.
Yours,
so fantastic, cool. So next week we're going to be diving into the 5th part. I still can't believe we're going to be on part 5 next Wednesday. It goes so quickly, but it's such amazing stuff, as you can see by the lovely comments. Do you want to have a quick kind of like talk through the kind of stuff? I know you've sort of been talking about what we're going to be doing next week anyway, but just like a reminder for everyone.
Yeah. So next week, we're going to finish up the rig. We're going to finish the rigging of this character, okay? And then we're going to go through it about how to animate with it, because like there's a lot of features in the rig, okay, that are like that save you work, okay? So we want to look at the different features of the rig. So we're going to kind of dissect the rig and what it can do. And one of the things that it can do is there's built-in controls for IK-FK switching. So what we wanted to, and this is a big topic actually that we want to talk about, is we want to talk about when to switch between IK and FK, and there's all sorts of different reasons. And that's an important thing. We also want to talk about how to use the character object with C motion. You can use it with C motion. And it's really useful like that. Depending on where we get next week, because it always takes longer than I think it's going to take, we may or not talk about joint dynamics. One thing I did want to mention though is I was thinking, and I probably will do this, I was thinking about doing like little, 30-second clips or something of animation tests with the rigs, just to see what the rig can do. And I might put that on my YouTube channel. So I mean, they're too small. They'd just be like 10 seconds each or something. Obviously, so you might want to just look in the comments and follow my channel. I might post little things as time goes by, like 10-15 second animation tests. But in general, so depending on the time, I may or may not go into joint dynamics. I might save that for the last class. And that's it. Really.
Cool. Sounds like another great week.
Yeah.
So yeah.
It's gonna get fun next week, because like a lot of the tedium that goes into like rigging the character with the character objects, like we'll be able to finish that and we'll be actually able to use the character. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That sounds great. We just had a quick question about, can I get the recording session on YouTube? Yeah, what we'll do, as soon as this is over, we have to wait for it to process for a little bit. Then as soon as we can, we'll get it uploaded onto the Maxon Training Team YouTube channel. So you'll be able to go recap and watch all this great stuff again that Joe's just been teaching us.
Yeah, and I will read all the comments, and also if there are any questions I missed, I might follow up on them.
Yeah, and that's great. Yeah, I really appreciate that, Joe, as does everyone here. It's really great to see you in those YouTube comments. I was telling people as well, if they do have some questions, to just drop them on there, because you have been actively kind of responding and answering those questions, which is amazing.
I keep a close eye on that as well.
Yeah. So bear that in mind, everyone. If you have any questions, just drop them in the YouTube comments. And yeah, once again, Joe, thanks for such an incredible session. And thank you everyone who's been here with us live, and those of you who catch it up on YouTube as well. We've had so many amazing questions. I couldn't get around to asking all of them because, we'd be here for hours, which I'm sure we'd all love to do. But yeah, we got through.
Well, I wouldn't mind, it's just that I know that people, have things to do and stuff, but it would be fun.
Yeah, definitely. Cool. Well, yeah, have a lovely rest of your week, Joe, and have a lovely rest of your week for everyone else, and a great rest of your day. And yeah, we'll see you next Wednesday for part 5.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks, Hannah, Wesley, everybody. See you later. I'll read the comments later. Have a great day, everyone.
Cheers. You too. Bye, everyone.